Hi Internet, I'm Jared,
Hi Internet, I'm Noon Justin.
and we're bringing you another Discourse Dojo. Yeah, Discourse Dojo.
You forgot about that? Well, too fucking bad. You're gonna have to forget about it again.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. And today we want to talk about Invisible Ink, Calais Entertainment's latest spy XCOM game. Justin played this game a lot in early access. I totally didn't play it at all in early access, but it's been released in actual access a few weeks ago at time of recording.
In present access.
Yes, I like that one.
I just can't wait until the late access version comes out. Would that
Wouldn't
be like
that just-
Game of the Year editions of games?
I was going to make the same joke. Damn you.
Oh my god, we need to send this out to publishers. We'll make a lot of money.
Anyway, Justin and I have both played Invisible Ink, and we both kind of super love it.
Yes, I will say that without a doubt. I will say this, and it's early, but I'll say it. If there ends up being another game that I call Game of the Year for 2015, I'll be very surprised. This game just super clicks with me.
We're recording right now, and I'm kind of like, my hand is twitching towards the mouse because I'm like, I could totally start this game up in the meantime. I have an expert run going where I'm trying this and this and this. But let's actually talk about Invisible Ink and all the stuff we like about it, and maybe some of the stuff we don't like about it as much, because I know I have some complaints. I don't know about you.
Not any that I can think of, but there are probably things that if you say it, I'll be like, yeah, that's true.
Alright, so let's get started with that.
Yeah.
What is Invisible Ink? Why don't you tell our audience what Invisible Ink is?
Alright, Invisible Ink is a turn-based, procedurally generated, stealth espionage spy game where you control a small team of secret agents sneaking around corporate complexes to steal various things, whether it be information or tech or whatever, and
or money.
or money, and trying not to get caught, or getting caught and then running away, but not getting shot in the process. Getting shot is a big thing that can happen in this game.
It's very much a future cyberpunk game where the corporations rule the world and you're a spy agency. And the general setup of the base game is that your spy agency's been hit. You have 72 hours to keep your artificial intelligence alive and to find the corporation headquarters. And you have to prepare for your inevitable counterattack by hitting the corporations as much and as hard as you can.
Yes, you have to get as much stuff as possible, and that becomes more and more emphasized on harder difficulties. It is the thing that I noticed.
Yeah. It's very much a setup that is similar to FTL in that you start every game with a certain combination of agents and programs that you can select based on the stuff that you've unlocked. And it has this gradual unlocking system that you've seen in many other games. And there is always the predetermined end battle it's procedurally generated like everything in the game is, but the end battle is going to come and you know more or less what's going to be there. So based on your starting stuff and based on what you find, you can try to prepare for that. But every mission you get and every option you can select is also randomly procedurally generated. So the game very much becomes this challenge of taking what you've selected and taking what you've been given and trying to build yourself up as strongly and as effectively as possible in order to be able to win, while also making sure that you don't lose in the side missions, which is entirely possible and happens more often than you'd like.
Yes.
For me.
And, the FTL comparison is really apt, because, like with FTL, it's like, largely about hoarding as much as you can throughout the game to get, like, specific things that you know you're going to need. Like, in this case, you need armor-piercing weapons. I did not realize how freaking important that would be until I got to the final mission. And like in FTL, like, you think the game is just sort of about, like, getting better stuff to overcome the next hurdle and blah, 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 until the first time you actually reach the final mission and then realize, oh, the whole game is about preparing for that. and
building up to that.
Yeah, it's just like where the game pulls no punches, and the whole game is preparation for it. Yeah, one thing I really liked was that I played in expert mode on like one of my first few runs. Oh yeah, by the way, one big thing that they added since early access when I played it was difficulty levels. When I played it in like when it first got added to early access, it's possible they added difficulty levels throughout early access, but when I joined, there was one difficulty, and that difficulty was really hard.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was the kind of thing where you would like you don't even get close to the final mission for your first several days of playing the game. And
in contrast to the current version, where there are like 8 difficulty levels and a very wide variety of settings that you can make your own personal difficulty level with.
Yeah, that's a thing I kind of would like to see in more games, because like it has 3 base difficulty levels. That it's just like, if you're not very familiar with the game, just pick beginner, or maybe experienced if you're feeling really daring. Once you've gotten better, you can pick expert. But like once a player has really like played through all the difficulty levels and gotten to know the game really well, then you can just open up the settings and tweak like tons of little details about how it will go, like how many consoles will be around for you to hack, how many security cameras are around, how many guards are in each level, how big each level is going to be. Like it's kind of amazing, and you can make the most absurdly easy levels, or you can make the most absurdly difficult levels. And the game also has really interesting ways of introducing difficulty, like changing sort of core game mechanics to make the game much more punishing and require you to be much more cautious. Like in Expert Plus mode, throughout the whole game, killing a guard will raise the... Okay, so wait, we haven't even... Okay, hold on.
Yeah, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, because I just realized that to explain what that was, I would have to explain the alarm level, and that was a whole other thing we need to explain.
Yeah. The gist of it, anyway, is that you can change your difficulty levels a lot, and there are several settings, also like the one that changes the alarm level so it doesn't auto-increase, that just really change the flow of the game. So you can go for, like what I would do if I'm bored, when I get bored with the basic difficulty levels, is maybe make one that is really punishing if you make a mistake, but really lenient if you do well. So that if you play perfectly, it's a walk in the park, and then once you mess up, you actually like really super mess up.
Yeah, that's totally
That sounds
possible.
like fun for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, why don't we talk about the actual game? We've already discussed that 72 hours, spies, corporations. The gist of it is that you start up in a world map. And on that world map are one or more randomly generated missions. And you pick one of these missions, and you go there with your spy jet. And that takes a bunch of the hours that you have left. And once the 72 hours are gone, you get to the final boss fight.
Yeah,
that's
and
it.
Pretty much all the hours are taken by travel time. Like, time technically goes by when you're just looking at the world map, but that goes in terms of, like, seconds, like, in real time. And you're not going
it's actual real time.
You're not going to spend an hour looking at the, 5 missions on display and going, ooh, I don't know which one I want to do! Like, you're going to spend, like, a minute or two doing that. So it's all in the travel time. You're not going to spend the whole game going, like, oh god, I can't stop wasting all this time. You know, it's... Yeah.
I wish I could think about things, but no! That is not how it works. Now, the core metagame is very much FTL, but the actual in-mission game has been described as very XCOM influenced instead.
Yes. Interesting note is that in early builds of the game, like before it even went on to early access, when they were first sort of scoping things out and making builds and engines and whatever, the game was much more XCOM inspired than it is now, and it wasn't working very well. So what they did was they said, like, okay, well, let's look at, you know, because we're going for a spy motif. Let's watch a lot of spy movies that, like, you know, that we're trying to get the vibe of, and see, like, what makes those work. And one thing that they observed with it is that like one thing that makes those spies work so well is that they always have sort of an absurd and like unrealistic amount of knowledge and information about the place that they're sneaking around in and that they're doing stuff in. And so they decided to make that concept of information, like they decided to make that a sort of core thing in the game. And that was when the game started to really shine. So the sort of takeaway from that was to not just look to other video games for inspiration. But what I think is really interesting...
see that.
Yeah, and what I think is really interesting about that is that a lot of game developers will look to movies for inspiration for their game and then make their game just sort of feel like a movie that you have to press buttons to watch. But with Clay, I feel like it's more like, how can we use interactivity to sort of hit the same, like, motif, hit the same sort of style, but in a video game way? You know, like, how can we use gameplay mechanics to hit the same basic aesthetics?
You see this in their other games, too, in Don't Starve, and particularly Marcus and Ninja.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Where it's very much, how can we make a game that is a badass ninja movie without just taking over the tropes that other ninja games have? And they actually succeeded there much more strongly than most other ninja games today now.
Yeah, absolutely. I would call Mark of the Ninja like the most ninja game to exist. And honestly, I would probably consider Invisible Inc. the most spy game I've ever played. Certainly more than GoldenEye.
It is very much what I want to say is like an unbalanced spy game, where the spies are clearly the underdogs and the corporations have all the power, but simultaneously the spies have all the information. And it's this battle of wits versus the corporation's brute strength, which is, I've heard it described as a very Netrunner kind of game, for those of you who know what Netrunner is. It's not really the same thing, because Netrunner is about hacking, obviously. But it is very much that idea of the corporation is the brute muscle, and the tricks up their sleeves. And the hackers, the spies in this case, they have other kinds of information, other kinds of gadgets, and it's their goal to just get in, get their stuff, and get out, while the corporation's goal is mostly to stop you from doing that.
Yeah, you overcome strength with the use of wit. And I
and the
really
occasional strength.
enjoy... Yeah, and I really enjoy that. And so, yeah, it like, the XCOM influence, I feel, mostly comes from the turn-based cover system, where, like, it's all on a grid, and, like, obstacles...
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Obstacles inside... You're always going through, like, sort of corporate office complex sort of environments in this game, because cyberpunk and all that. And so it makes a lot of sense for things to be really blocky, where you're hiding behind stuff like tables and filing cabinets and whatever. Like, of course, those are all rectangularly shaped. So it uses
more or less.
Yeah, generally. And so it uses the XCOM style cover system where you can hide behind things like when you stand in when you hold your cursor over a block, you can see like what positions you would have cover from, like what directions you would be hiding from if your character was there. And so, but you don't do this in order to like get higher percent chance of dodging an enemy hit like in XCOM. You do it so that you won't be seen at all. And that's a very crucial difference.
Yeah. Maybe we want to talk about the basic gameplay a little. The idea is that it's a turn-based game where you move on a square grid. All your agents have a certain number of action points to walk around and use items and open doors and peek around corners and stuff. And once you finish your turn, the corporation moves. And the corporation's turn, when you start out, is usually that some guards and maybe some robots will do their patrol routes, and some guards will stand still. And that's it. And guards have a sight line, which is very clearly defined as these squares they can see in red, and these squares they can sort of see in yellow. And the idea is that you want to stay out of sight of the guards as much as possible, because once they spot you, they can basically kill you very easily. All guards are armed, and they're all guns that you can't use. So that's what the hiding is for. You want to stay out of the guard's sightlines and then either slip by them or use what little weapons you have to either knock them out or kill them for a little while. Well, knock them out for a little while or kill them for a longer while.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. You mentioned that they'll shoot you and stuff. And the really important thing to note there is that unlike most turn-based games and most games in general where you have health bars and you take a hit and lose some of your health, in this game things are much more immediately lethal in that you don't have a health bar, you're just either up or down. If a guard shoots you, there's no percentage chance of him hitting you, he just hits you. And if you get hit, you are down. And unless you have somebody with a med gel, that your character is straight up dead.
Or if you drag them to the exit.
Oh yeah, you can do that, I forgot. But yeah, and you mentioned the sort of like detection system where there's red and yellow on the squares based on what they can see, and that was actually another thing that changed during the development. Is that originally you would only see those lines, those colors, if you could see the enemy that view was coming from, or the camera.
Yeah, that's still an option.
That's an option now, but it's like a super hardcore mode option, because even though it's unrealistic for your character to know what can be spotted, even though they don't know that a security camera is there, it just works so much better for the game if you can see it, because otherwise you just take a step into a room and bam, the guard saw you, you're gonna die. Unless you constantly peek around every corner, which takes down a lot of your action points, and you're just like, oh, the reason action points are super important, and why movement is super important, is because a core conceit of this game is time. You have an alert meter, basically. It goes up every time a guard sees you, or if a guard sees a dead body, or something like that, but it also goes up at the end of every single turn. And as the alert... I don't remember if it's alert or alarm, but you get the gist of it.
Alarm tracker is what it's called.
Alarm tracker, that's what it is. As the alarm tracker gets higher, it has different levels, and each level has 5 sort of ticks, and each time it gets to another level, something bad happens. Yeah, either another enemy spawns, or more cameras become activated, or something like that. That completely changes the whole... this probably sounds a lot like a sort of standard roguelike affair, but stealthy instead of combat-y, where you go through procedurally generated levels, try to loot everything, and get out. But with that timer involved, that makes it a race against the clock, where you're trying to get as much as you can and leave. Not based on a hard video game timer where you have 5 minutes to do it or else you lose. Instead, you're trying to determine how much do I think I can get away with before there's too much going on here that I can't escape.
Even if the alarm reaches maximum height, you can technically still win.
Yes,
but it's very, very unlikely, because they start sending elite guards that know where you are. And
they'll actually know where you are each turn, and that is terrifying.
Or at the start, at least.
Yeah. So yeah, it's this really engaging sort of balancing act between trying to get as much as you need, which on higher difficulty levels is a lot, versus trying to get away alive. And even if you lose even one agent in a mission, that is a massive
your maximum party size is 4.
Yeah, and you start out with 2 people. And if you have one person in a mission, if you lose one of your 2 agents, then that's gonna be really bad. On any difficulty other than beginner, I would say just start over.
Yeah, just dissolve the agency.
But yeah, man, we haven't talked about the hacking yet. That's a whole other
I was actually gonna bring that up right now. Because like you said, one side of the games is very asynchronous, I want to say unbalanced, asymmetrical, that's the word I was looking for. This asymmetrical fight between the guards that usually don't know where you are, but they have a lot of firepower and sometimes they have armor, and depending on which corps you're attacking, they have other special abilities. And your spies that do very much know where everything is, and sometimes they can take out guards either temporarily or permanently, but you shouldn't engage them in a straight-up fight. But then there's also the layer of corporate cybersecurity, which is expressed in the cameras and the consoles and all the stuff that's around. There's a lot of security cameras, for instance, and if they spot you, that raises the alarm, and it relays to nearby guards where you are, which, as we've mentioned, is very bad. But you have the help of a artificial intelligence program called Incognita, and Incognita can hack stuff for you.
Yeah, because we mentioned that you have your artificial intelligence thing, and that artificial intelligence is named Incognita, and she's a whole other aspect of the game where, like, you know, roguelikes usually have some sort of meter. It's usually health and something like that you have to manage. Like, you have to manage resources. And there's no HP bars in this, but you do have to manage the amount of power that Incognita has, because hacking in this game is not some sort of mini game. It's just you use power to break firewalls, and it gets more complicated when you start getting different programs that do different things. Okay, this is the way I put it when I was sort of explaining the game to Val. Think of it as Incognita is the wizard in your party, and the programs are spells.
I was going to make exactly that analogy.
And power is mana. That's basically exactly how it works.
Essentially, yeah, you can use Incognita's programs to either manage your power supply, or to break firewalls, or occasionally to do something. And just like how you start with 2 agents of your choice, and you can find more during gameplay, you start with 2 programs of your choice at the beginning, and you can find more by buying them.
Yeah, exactly.
The hacking layer is another part where the information imbalance is very clear, because you can actually hack security cameras, and hack drones and turrets, and hack safes and databases, and just gain a certain measure of power over a level.
Yes, and you have to do it in many cases.
You have to do this because otherwise these things are turned against you.
Yeah, you can't open safes unless you hack them. You can't open like things involving the missions unless you hack them. You know, like you can't steal the data for the executive terminal. You can't open
a special safe. You can't release prisoners. You can't do anything without hacking.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why it is really important to manage your power well, and that's what makes. For me, when choosing your agents at the beginning, one thing that makes it really interesting is that some agents have powers that make them better for, like, knocking out guards or, like, running faster, that sort of thing, but some agents have powers that just, like, help Incognita conserve more energy. And that, like trying to decide which one of those you need more is very interesting.
And speaking of agents, we've already mentioned this. There's, I think, 8 agents that you can normally get, and then 2 bonus agents that we shouldn't bring up.
Yes, spoilers.
And a big part of... This is where the FTL comparison came from the most. A big part of how you play Invisible Ink is deciding which agents and which programs you're going to bring on your run, because this is very much going to determine what you want to do. So, if you bring International, you'll be able to see all the stuff around you, and if you bring Prism, you'll be able to conserve power more. But if you bring Sharp, you want to go hunt for cybernetic implants as much as possible.
Yeah, and if you're like me, you'll find a combo of 2 that you just really like, and that you'll just be like, all right. Like, for me, it was International and Prism, and then the programs were Seed and I think just Lockpick, like the standard Lockpick.
I'm similar in that I think International and Prism is a very good combo, not necessarily the one I think is the most fun, but it's really powerful. But then I would use Fusion and Parasite.
I don't remember which one Fusion was.
Fusion is the one that eats 5 power, and then for 4 turns it gives you 3 power per turn.
Good. Yeah,
it's alright if you have a certain base level of power. And Parasite works well with International because you can just put the parasites down on everything that she spots.
That's true. I guess I didn't like that because sometimes you'll like something will get a demon added to it after you've put a parasite on it, and you're like, shit,
That'll
no,
happen.
I don't want to hack that. Oh yeah, so mechanic explain to people at home. One complication with hacking is that after like the first day, you'll start finding that specific hackable objects and stuff have demons on them, and it's like DAEMON, I know that's
a certain type of
thing.
program, yeah.
Yeah, I know that's an actual thing in computers, but it's defense systems where if you hack that object, then something bad will happen. Very occasionally it'll be something good, but that's a super rare thing. And you can discover what the demons will do if you do a certain thing. Otherwise, it's secret, and sometimes it's not a big deal. Like, oh no, it advanced the tracker like 1 tick. But then you'll get one that's like, oh no, it spawned an elite enforcer.
Oh no, you can't hack for 3 more turns.
Oh yeah, that one is super crippling depending on the context.
Yeah, the demon system is another part of, as you go through the missions and through the days of the 72 hours, the corporations start upping the game against you. And there's 4 corporations, each with their own stuff, and then demons get added, and drones get added, and stuff, and it's just a very interesting way of raising the stakes over time. But getting back to the characters real quick, because this is also something on your list, each of the characters is very much an individual agent, and they all have a very interesting backstory and character design in only a few lines, and the graphics are so cool. I like them so much.
It's a really just gorgeous game, and like the art and the music both, I feel, are really well fleshed out.
I'm not really a music person, I barely pay attention to that, but I do like the art. It's very clean and crisp and very a style of its own.
And it's not, like after I had played Shank and Mark of the Ninja, it really seemed to me like it was just like Clay had their art style, and that was what Clay games look like, and it was sort of like Saturday morning cartoon-esque animation. But with Don't Starve and with Invisible Ink, it really shows that, like, you know, they always make, like, cartoony games, but they're definitely willing to stray from what style of cartoony they're willing to go with. Because it's not just cartoony or realistic. Art is way more complicated than that.
Mm-hmm.
And like Don't Starve had a more dark sort of cartoony look to it than Mark of the Ninja. It sort of... It had, like, dark humor, and it was sort of whimsical, but also, like, really sinister looking. It sort of
and it had, like, 5 colors.
Yes. It almost reminded me of, like, Batman the Animated Series, in terms of
a little bit, yeah.
And then with Invisible Ink, it has, a really clean cut, like digital sort of look to it.
Very straight edge, yeah. The color use very much reminds me, sorry for the interruption, reminds me of No One Lives Forever. And it is very much also this, it plays out in the future, but it's a very bright and colorful palette where every agent has their own outfit and every corporation has some special stuff that they can have lying around. Yeah. And everything is just inviting, I want to say. It's art that
definitely
that helps you enjoy the experience.
And also, it's like it's the future, but it certain aspects of it feel like retro future, like sort of like what the '60s thought the future would look like. Like like the hacker characters in the game have those like enormous headphones at all times on them. And I remember when our friend Thanatos was asking me, like, when he was first just looking at Invisible Ink, he was like, why does the one hacker lady have those giant headphones? She's supposed to be sneaking, right? And this is supposed to be the future? And I'm like, yeah, but this is a very particular sort of future. But yeah, no, and with the characters and the dialogue, I really like how this game, it explains its world building not through, like, ham-fisted, like a big cutscene at the beginning where it's like, in the beginning there was things, and then the war happened, and at first we were winning, but then we were losing. You know, it didn't do that. It's like the world is just sort of presented as what's happening, but if you read a lot of, like, character descriptions, item descriptions, random things that your British central boss lady says. You can sort of infer things about the world and what has happened in the future. Like references are made to the resource wars that apparently happened. References are made to the downfall of nations, and now when you look at the world map, it's evident that the world is basically run by 4 giant corporations that have like split up the continents. North America controls one. There's one that's like South America and Africa, and then one is just like all of Asia, and then there's one that's like it's like Europe and Australia, weirdly. And also references are made from your captain saying like the corporations are technically at war, but they sort of hold off on each other. It's like a Cold War sort of thing.
Well, they're holding off on each other to destroy your agency right now.
That's true. That's what's that's like the plot of the game. But yeah, very interesting stuff. I like that you're not force-fed details, but it's also not too cryptic. It's not like Dark Souls cryptic, where you need a wiki to figure out what's going on. And I like that the world building is sort of obtuse and vague.
It's there as much as it needs to be.
Yeah, and I like that the world building is not necessarily spelled out for you, but the plot, like, that is presented to you straight up. I think that's really important.
The characters, similarly, they have a place in the world, and almost all of them have a backstory of like 3 or 4 lines, which is, this is what this character's good at, this is what they are, this is how they were fucked over by the corporations, now they work for us. And then sometimes in missions they talk, like whenever you start a mission, one character will say something, and if you lose a mission very badly, one character may also say something because it's literally their last lines before they're gunned down. That is an option.
Yes,
but beyond that, there's dialogue by your CEO, by Central, and dialogue by the major shopkeeper monster, and dialogue by Incognita, and that's about it.
Yeah, and honestly, like all the like monologuing and stuff from your central CEO lady, like that is where so much of the interesting flavor of the game comes from for me. Is the world interpreted through her, and like each of the characters interpreted through her, because when you read the text for a character's description, it just says like this is what they did, and you know now they're working for Invisible Ink because they got fucked over by whatever. But when you put your cursor on them or click on them in the character selection screen, your captain lady also like talks about them briefly, and like hearing what she has to say about them is interesting. Where like with International, it mentioned that she has like that she's like, what was it, like she's concerned about the welfare of whatever. But,
yeah, she's a Cuban revolutionary.
Yes, but then like when Central describes her, she's like she has a very problematic concern for people. Don't mention to her like don't ask her about the plight of the global proletariat. Like I'm hoping she doesn't. I'm hoping that doesn't prove to be a liability.
Her conscience might prove a liability in the field.
Yeah, that's what it was. And then with the sort of sketchy sniper guy, she's like, he's obviously using us for some sort of what's the word?
Personal gain.
Yeah, for some sort of ulterior
personal gain again.
Ulterior motive. We'll see who plays their hand first.
I like Sharp, who's a robot guy, and the description is just he's a robot guy, so he's like 90% metal. Yeah. And Central talks about most people dislike Sharp because he's a freaky robot guy. I personally dislike Sharp because he's a psychopath with very little regard for human life. And I say that as a person who talks to a artificial intelligence program for like 40% of her day.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing. In general, this game has a lot of... You know, okay, maybe this is just the campster in me talking, but I sort of felt like this game at times pokes and prods at the idea of emotional attachment to characters. Because, like, Okay, so with Pokemon, one thing that Pokemon fans love to say is that, like, as you're playing through
Gotta
the game...
catch them all.
Well, yeah,
That's
obviously.
the thing that Pokemon fans like to say.
But also, like I've heard a lot of them say before that like throughout your whole playthrough of a Pokemon game, you sort of start to become attached to like the Pokemon that are like regular in your belt.
Yep.
And you want
happens.
them to do well because they're cool and they've helped you so much and stuff. And I feel like the game sort of pokes fun at that, or sort of pokes and prods at that idea because of certain lines that Central will say where like you'll have a character go down, you'll have a character get shot, and Central will be like, do you have any idea how much that agent is worth to us? Like, get them back, that sort of thing. And like when you save an agent in the detention center mission, one thing I've heard her say before is she's like, we don't leave our agents behind. They're much more useful under our control.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that one up too.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if it was just meant as funny dialogue, but it sort of feels like the game is poking and prodding at the idea of emotional attachment to stuff, and I don't know. I didn't used to do these readings before I started watching Errant Signal, but
ludonarrative dissonance,
etc. No, I mean I think it's an interesting topic. I just don't know if it was intentional or not.
I agree that it's an interesting topic, and I never thought about it that way. I notice that I am getting some level of emotional attachment to the characters that I just like the most, which is also what we brought up, that I have that too, that I just have a few characters that I think if I really want to win and if I really want to have fun, I can do these characters, and otherwise I'll try something out. And the characters are barely developed, and it still kind of happens.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. With Pokemon, there's no character. It's just a cute little animal. So I think it has more to do with, sort of becoming emotionally involved in the game itself. Like, the I hate to say this, but, like, the game part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And wanting to win because of that. And sort of thinking, yeah, this character, she's gonna be awesome. Like, I really like Internationale. Her little lines of dialogue, they're pretty simplistic, and she's a pretty one-dimensional character. And I mean,
they all are.
Yeah, but like, that sounds like an insult. But you don't need to have three-dimensional characters when the story is not about the characters.
And it very much is not. The story is about Invisible Ink.
Yeah, it's about Invisible Ink. It's about Incognita. It's about the agency and about like corporate control in general. Like, that's the big theme. And I will say one actual criticism I have of the story is that, while not wishing to spoil anything, the ending is the most predictable thing imaginable. And I don't know if it was intentional. Like, I don't know if they put that many warning signs that this was the ending that was going to happen, because they didn't want it to actually surprise anybody, but like, man, I was just like, is this going to be a bait and switch? Are they making us think this is going to happen and then it won't? No, it just happens, and it's exactly what you think is going to happen.
It was quite something, yeah.
And it wasn't uncool. It wasn't an invalid ending or an incredibly flawed thing, but it was just, I was like, we've seen this in so many things before, I don't know.
Yeah, it was not what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
And speaking of valid criticisms, I personally like this game a lot, but there are a few things that I feel sort of impacted a little bit. So the core thing of it is procedural generation. Like, every mission, every area, everything is procedurally generated. And for the most part, that works pretty well. But you can also get missions that are just like shit in layout, where the exit is all the way on the other side of the level from the thing that you have to be, and there's 10 guards in between, and there's no like reasonable chance of winning, and you have to get a key card, etc., etc., etc. And that happens, and in the long run, it doesn't really matter, because this is going to balance out, and it's good more than it's bad. But if you are playing an experienced or expert level, and you get to like a very important level, and it turns out that you can't win because the dice just rolled poorly, and on the higher difficulty levels they purposefully take out the ability to re-roll levels, that annoys me. Yeah. I get why it's there, but it annoys me.
Yeah, I guess I'm more forgiving of stuff like that happening because I always think to myself, like, if they really ironed out the level generation to make sure nothing like that would happen, like, there probably just wouldn't be a ton of variety to begin with. Like, I sort of dread a sort of alternate universe version of this game where, like, every level plays out in basically the same way. And I think what
totally.
Like, I think what makes the stealth in this game work so much is, like, the thing is, I was incredibly skeptical of the idea when I first read, like, the Rock, Paper, Shotgun interview saying, hey, like, after Don't Starve came out and stuff, it was like, hey, Clay's working on a new game. It's a turn-based procedural stealth game that takes influence from XCOM, but is about stealth. And I was just like I've said this before because other people have tried it, like, procedural stealth just doesn't really work because stealth by its definition is a puzzle. And like you can't do randomly generated puzzles because the solution is either going to be super easy or just like broken. But I think this game manages it mostly well because of all the different variables going on, because it's not just about, like, most stealth games are just about avoiding guards detection. This one is avoiding the guards detection and doing it in a good amount of time while not running, because, like, you can run, but it'll make
but
noise.
You can't hide.
Yeah, exactly. No,
I mean, like, you can hide, but they'll try looking for you.
And it's like there's so many variables. There's the hacking, which is a resource management thing that works without getting, like, detected, you know? Like, I was afraid that, like, I'm sick of in stealth games where they have a whole bunch of mechanics and like it's like, oh man, you have to worry about health and ammo and blah 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 if you break the stealth and fight and go into combat. Otherwise, you just stay invisible the whole time and you're fine. Like with this, the whole hacking element is a resource management system that like works in tandem with stealth. And the stealth doesn't necessarily break as soon as you get detected because you don't just go into combat mode. You go into let's run away mode or let's distract this guard. Like, sometimes alerting guards can be a good thing if you're going to make them go somewhere while another character goes to do this. Like, there's so many layers involved.
I had that once where there was the exit, and in a niche before the exit was a guard, and the guard was stationary, which means that they don't move unless prompted. And that was very annoying. But what I did was open a door on the other side of the guard, which prompted him to investigate. And while he walked to the other side of the map, all my guys just sprinted into the teleporter, which makes a lot of noise. So he was like, what was that noise? I'm going to turn around on my next turn. But by then I was already out of it.
On the final mission, I ended up, in experience mode, I ended up winning because, like, on one side of the map was the one thing you have to hack, and then, like, not on quite the other side of the map, but like let's say 25% of the map away. It was a big circle. The map was a big circle. And it was like, let's say on the northwest side was the one thing I had to hack, and then on the southwest side was the other thing I had to go to after the first thing was hacked. Again, avoiding spoilers. And so, like, what I basically did was after I hacked the first thing, I had to go to the other thing, but there were a whole bunch of guards patrolling, so, like, I shot the guards that were near me, and those guards, like, one or two of them I killed, and the rest I knocked out, and, like, did a bunch of stuff, used a bunch of abilities to knock them out as long as I could. And normally, having guards detect other bodies is a really bad thing because it raises the tracker, and especially killing guards. Guards are all equipped with heartbeat monitors, so killing them raises the tracker in and of itself. So that's, like, in beginner mode, you'd sort of learn to never do either of those things. But in this experience run, I did that so that they were looking around those bodies specifically, and then I was able to, like, incredibly narrowly avoid their detection and run the long way around the map while they were searching in that area for, like, oh my god, who did this? And it's just like that's it's so cool that the game can create situations like this procedurally. It's like some of the most amazing emergent gameplay I've played in a very long time.
Yeah, I had the same thing with the first final experience mission I had, where I managed to let two of my 3 surviving characters, I let them sprint into a room, and then the last character I didn't let go into the room, but I set him in front of the door to that room. So then when the guards showed up, they saw him and immediately went, "Stop right there!" and stopped. And then I had him hide for 1 turn so that the guards started chasing him while the actually important characters slipped by undetected.
Yeah, exactly. Like, since it was the final level, I was like, I'm going to use this character to distract guards, and if she dies, I'll be sad, but fuck it. Like, I'm just in this to beat the game. Like, oh, it's so cool. Sorry, I'm gonna try not to just, like, fanboy out.
No, that's alright. It is very cool. I said that I'm annoyed by it because
sometimes you'll just get a really bad level where it's like all the dice roll in a specific way that just sucks. Yeah, I agree with that.
I had a jail level detention center where the actual detention center was in a corner of a massive open room with like 3 guard routes going through it. Yeah, and it's like there is no way I can get out of there.
Yeah.
And I mean, that happens. It is the price you pay.
That's the thing. I try, like I think it's at this point, sometimes I just sort of make excuses for it because I love the game so much. But like, yeah, it's I sort of say to myself, like, if like I like that you'll generally get levels that play like fundamentally differently. Like, you'll get some levels that it's just like a series of open rooms all interconnected in just like this big sort of circular fashion, and then sometimes you'll get a level that's like a lot of linear hallways in a sort of like rectangular-ish outline of a complex. And it's like that results in a lot of really different and really interesting situations, but it also results in the occasional really shitty situation.
Even then, though, you can usually work around it in an interesting fashion.
Yeah, and you learn how to do that as you get farther in it. Like, just several days after, like, I played an expert run early on just to see how hard it was, and I was like, oh my god, I have to have armor-piercing weapons already? That's absurd. But then, like, several days afterward, when I had beaten it on beginner and then beaten it on intermediate, I played an expert, and, like, I was consistently looting, like, every corporate safe on every level that I was playing. And I was like, okay, I can see how this is doable now. It's like you just... Mm-hmm. As you play the game more and more, you sort of get to understand all the systems, all the features on display, and, like, how you can utilize them. It's a lot
how you have to use them.
Yes, it's kind of amazing how with each harder difficulty level, the like safes you can loot and stuff like that go from being nice little bonuses to being like absolutely necessary.
Looting the guards or stealing from the guards if you can help it. Yeah. Getting characters with high anarchy and...
Yeah, that was another thing. In beginner levels, when I was starting out, I would just knock out every guard and loot from them because it was just like, there's like 3 guards in a stage, whatever. But in harder difficulties, like, if you don't knock out a guard, then they'll just keep patrolling. And, like, if you make a noise, then they'll come and try to find you. But if they don't find you, then they'll just go back to their patrol. But if you knock out a guard, they'll only be knocked out a few turns, and it's shorter, depending on difficulty. And when they wake up, like, they will spend the entire rest of the level hunting for you. And
because now they know you're there.
Yeah. And they might not necessarily... Like, yeah, it's not like other stealth games where it's like, ow, I got shot in the face. Who did that? And then 10 seconds later, must have been my imagination.
Must have been the wind.
It's like they will spend the entire rest of the level looking for you. And they might go in the wrong direction if your alert level isn't too high and stuff like that, and that's fine. But if they don't, and it's random, then, like, good lord, that becomes terrifying on harder difficulties. You're trying to figure out how to sneak past these 2 guards that are patrolling, and then, oh shit, this third one that I knocked out 5 turns ago just walked in, and like, he's looking for me. Like that's really bad. But
and now the other ones are there too.
Yeah.
Because they heard me shooting.
Exactly, yeah. And it's like, it's not necessarily game-breaking, it's just something you really have to be aware of. Sometimes it's best to knock out guards, sometimes it's best to find a way to narrowly avoid him and just let him keep patrolling. It's just, it's so interesting.
I had one mission where, like, super early on, like in the third mission, first room was an armored guard, and I didn't have any armor-piercing weapons. So then I had to be incredibly careful to sneak around that and to not alert any nearby guards with too much noise. Because if that armor dude started hunting for me, I would lose. And that was just super interesting.
Yeah. There was one level where there was an armored level 3 guard, and I didn't have any weapons on any of my characters that could kill him, but he was stationary, and I was able to avoid him until near the end of the level when a guard fired a shot, and then I revived that character with a med gel or whatever. But then that guard was walking toward me, and I was like, oh god, oh no, this is gonna be it. I can't fucking beat him. Wait a minute! I hacked that turret earlier, but I didn't hack the turret itself. I hacked the power supply, which disabled it. If I reactivate it and then hack the turret itself, then I can have the turret shoot him. And that's how I did it. That's like one of the only times I've used a turret to shoot a guard, because you generally don't want to shoot them because it makes a ton of noise and it raises the tracker. But in that case, I was like, I have to kill him right now, or else I'm doomed. And it just, everything lined up so perfectly. It
is pretty amazing.
I think Invisible Ink is like the perfect game for consistently creating situations like that, where you're just constantly like, oh, that's it, I can't fucking beat this. I'm doomed. Wait a minute, no, wait, I can do this. I can send my guy right here.
That was basically my first experienced victory. Just a whole bunch of, I am not going to be able to do this. There's no way. How can I? Wow, I won. How did I win?
Yeah. It's such a thrill. Like it keeps tension going really consistently, and the payoff is so worth it. I think we should probably tie it up now, because we're just going on.
My last criticism of it, and this is not even really criticism, is that I wish there were more stories. Because the story that there is, the 72-hour time limit of the corpse engaging with you, that works. And you can play an endless mode, which is a sort of a story in and by itself. But I would have liked to see more stories as the actual Invisible Ink with a larger roster trying to figure out corporate plans or whatnot.
That would be cool, and I hope they can add that in future DLCs and stuff. Like the Mark of the Ninja Special Edition filled out a bit more backstory of the Ninja Clan by having you play as a different character doing a different thing. And that was cool. I hope they do something similar with Invisible Ink.
I hope so too, because it's a lot of fun.
I actually read in their most recent Steam news update thing for Invisible Ink that they're already working on free updates for the game, which would add more programs and more items, and they're already also working on more agents, which would which I don't know if that one's going to be free, but it would be I think they said it would be agents that came from the dissolved InfoSec something agency, the thing that you find out Monster came from. Which
the thing that Gladstone also came from?
Yeah, I don't think that's a spoiler. Because I think they just straight up say that in dialogue.
Nothing is a spoiler because the world doesn't exist that far.
Yeah.
It doesn't influence the gameplay anyway.
Exactly.
Anyway, let's wrap it up. We've been talking for about an hour.
Yeah, so I just want to say, Invisible Ink, you owe it to yourself to play this game, because if you haven't played Invisible Ink, you haven't played a game quite like Invisible Ink. And, if, even if it was alright and the idea wasn't fleshed out that well and stuff, I would probably still recommend it. The fact that they managed to nail it this well when it's such a unique and, this can't work sounding concept, you really owe it to yourself to play it.
If you are at all interested in interesting stealth gameplay, Invisible Ink is a version of stealth gameplay that I haven't seen often. It's important stealth, it puts the emphasis on stealth without making breaking stealth instant failure, but still making you feel like you fucked up. And it does very interesting things with information and power asymmetry and with procedural random generation of levels. And it's just so much fun to play. To go, which characters am I going to select this time, and which programs, and oh, look at these 5 missions that I get. Which one should I do now? Well, this is where I'm weak, so I should probably try this, and then I should probably go here, and then... And I'm going to play again after we're done recording.
I know, right? And I actually... have you played much of Endless?
I have not. I still want to finish Experience first.
Yeah, I haven't played Endless, but I have a friend who's played Endless, because a friend of mine has been playing the game, like, every day, constantly, for the past, like, week. So he's much better than either of us. And he's gotten to Endless, like, day 10, something like that, and he was telling me about some of the added challenges that come as each day goes by, because it's like, it'll be the sort of thing where it's like, at day 5, now there's this extra thing that makes the alarm go faster, or something like that. Like, on day 10, you have to do an extra mission that's super duper hard because of these enemy types that are introduced. It's like, it's apparently just like, the stakes just keep getting higher. And yeah, I wanna play that, but I don't feel like I'm good enough for it quite yet.
I am curious.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out at some point.
Exactly.
And then probably
we'll probably
about
stream this game sometime, so keep your eyes out for that. This is a very stream-worthy game.
I will probably also write a Let's Play about it at some point, and you will also.
Yes, I've had the plan since I played it on Early Access. I was like, I want to write a Let's Play based on this, or record one or something, but I want to wait until it's actually out.
Well, I'll race you to it. Anyway, thank you for listening, everyone. This was Discourse Dojo. See you next time.
Yeah, sounds good.